Hey guys, we have an Airbnb located in Sierra Madre, California, which is about 20 miles northeast of Los Angeles City. Sierra Madre is considered part of Los Angeles County, and it's not actually part of Los Angeles City. But one of the most common questions I get about hosting Airbnb is what are the rules and regulations for hosting Airbnb in the city of Los Angeles? Now, the rules and regulations are city specific. So the rules in Sierra Madre do not pertain to the rules in Los Angeles City. But I decided to do a deep dive of the rules and regulations for Los Angeles City anyways, because I get that question so often, and maybe I'll buy a house in Los Angeles City in the future. All right, so in July 2019, Los Angeles established a short-term rental ordinance, also known as CF 14-1635-S2. I put a link to that ordinance in the description below, and Airbnb also made a nice summary of that ordinance, and I'll put a link to that summary in the description below as well as any other links that I talk about in this video. So basically, there are three requirements in order to be a host, a short-term rental host in Los Angeles City. Number one is that the unit that you're renting out short-term must be your primary residence. Number two is that the unit must not be within a rent-controlled area. And then number three is that if you don't own that property, then you must get written consent from your landlord. So let's talk about those three requirements. Number one must be your primary residence. That's pretty self-explanatory. Number two, it must not be in a rent-controlled area. So in order to find that out, you can go on the ZEMA's website, also known as the Zone Information and Map Access System. Again, link in the description below. And number three, you must get written permission from your landlord. There is an actual form, an affidavit that you and your landlord must sign. You must sign it, and you also must get it notarized, and link to that as well in the description below. After you fulfill those requirements, you can go ahead and apply for a home sharing permit via the Los Angeles Host Compliance website. Once you apply for that permit, you get a pending permit number right away, and you can use that immediately on your listing. You'll eventually get approved, and once you do get approved, you'll get notified via email, and you can just continue using that same permit number. So this basic home sharing permit will allow you to host for only 120 nights maximum per year. You can host actually more than 120 nights per year in Los Angeles, but you'll have to get what's called the extended home sharing permit. This extended home sharing permit costs $850. And in order to qualify for this permit, it's not that hard. All you have to do is host more than 60 nights or be hosting for more than 6 months total from where you first started. When you apply for this extended home sharing permit and they accept your application, they will require what's called a neighborhood notification, where basically you'll have to mail out notifications to your adjacent neighbors and abutting neighbors. They actually do this mailing for you, but they charge you an upfront fee, additional fee in order to do this. So after the mailing is complete and you pay all the fees, then they will issue you the extended home sharing permit. That's pretty much it when it comes to the short-term rental ordinance of Los Angeles. If you do plan on hosting in Los Angeles on Airbnb, then make sure to read that ordinance because there's a lot of good details in there, including what happens if you violate the rules of that ordinance and what are the penalties involved if you do so. Some other things to look out for that's not covered under this ordinance is that if you live in an area that has an HOA, then that HOA can actually prohibit you from using your property as a short-term rental. And also, if you live on a property, if you have a property that has an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, then you probably signed a covenant that prohibited you from using that ADU as a short-term rental. But that doesn't mean that you can't live in your ADU and then short-term rental out your main house. Keep in mind that all these rules and regulations only apply for Airbnb stays of less than 30 days. If you find guests that want to stay in your Airbnb for 30 days or more, then all these rules don't apply. You're basically just a regular landlord at that point. If it were me, if I were hosting an Airbnb, I would do more of like a hybrid approach where I would be mainly looking for guests that want to stay for 30 days or more. And then I would fill in those long-term stays, the gaps between those long-term stays with short-term stays. This way I could probably avoid going over 120 nights, and I could avoid that $850 extended home sharing permit. Because remember that 129 night cap, that maximum, only applies for guests who are staying for less than 30 days. If they're staying for more than 30 days, then it doesn't apply to that 120 night count. Additionally, if you get guests who are staying for more than 30 days, they do not have to pay that transit occupancy tax, that 14% transit occupancy tax. In fact, if you have a guest who is staying even 25 nights, it makes sense to convert them to a 30-night stay, because a 25-night stay is actually about the same cost as a 30-night stay, because the guest is avoiding that 14% occupancy tax. Let's take a look at a quick example here. Here is a listing of a condo in Pasadena, California. The reason why I'm using Pasadena is because it's a place that also has a transient occupancy tax. So let's say I wanted to stay here for 27 nights. I want to check in on January 16th. I want to check out on February 12th. This is a 27-night reservation for a total of $5,385 and a transit occupancy tax of $517, which is included into that $5,385. So let's take a screenshot of this so we don't forget. Already took a screenshot. So now instead of checking out on February 12th, let's check out 1 week later on February 19th. How much does this cost? This actually costs less. It costs $5,271, partly because there's no more transit occupancy tax. Compare that to the other booking of 27 nights, actually costs less to book for 34 nights compared to booking for 27 nights, partly because we don't have to pay the $517, but also because the monthly discount is higher. This person is giving an incentive for you to book longer. So they give a bigger discount for over a 30-day stay versus less than 30-day stay. So even as a host, I would still rather have a 34-night reservation instead of a 27-night reservation if this listing was located in Los Angeles, because of how Los Angeles structures their permits. You can have a standard permit or you can have an extended home sharing permit. The standard permit allows you to host for short term for 120 nights maximum. But if you host anything for over 30 days, it doesn't count towards that 120 night count. So what you can do, as long as you get maybe 4 or 5 more of these long-term stays, maybe sometimes they're for 1 month, sometimes they're for 3 months, those don't count towards your 120 night count. And then in between those long-term stays, maybe you get a couple more of these short-term stays, and these short-term stays count towards your 120 night count. But you have so many long-term stays that you don't need to even use up all 120 nights. As long as you have enough long-term stays, you can be under 120 nights for your short-term stays. Hope that makes sense. And finally, if you are going to become an Airbnb host, then consider using my referral link below when you sign up for becoming a host. I get something like $400 or something if you sign up using that link, and it would really make my day if you do so. If you need any help getting set up, then feel free to reach out and I'll do whatever I can to help you get set up as well. For my next video, we're going to be doing an earnings update for our Airbnb in Sierra Madre for the past 7 or 8 months or so. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.